Good morning and good afternoon to all our lupus and fibromyalgia friends. Welcome to our Community Connect. I am Melissa from the Support Fibromyalgia Network, and I'm joined by our fabulous Looms for Lupus teammates.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. I am Estela Mata, one of the co-founders of Looms for Lupus.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Juana Mata, another co-founder from Looms for Lupus.
Yes, and we provide resources and support to those living with lupus and overlapping conditions such as fibromyalgia and their loved ones and caregivers. So we're excited to be here with you, Melissa, on a wonderful, well, what is this, like our last Friday of the year, right, for the Community Connect Live?
It'll be our last Community Connect of 2020, but we'll be continuing on in 2021. We have gotten a lot. We have some special guests that are interested in joining us, which I like this format because it is Community Connect. So connecting with people around the community will be part of this. And we'll just continue on our Friday mornings. Well, our Friday mornings, some people's Friday afternoons.
Right? Yes, and if this is the first time you join us, what we do is we basically bring updates to the community for both the lupus community and the fibromyalgia community. So we have a huge announcement that was breaking news yesterday, and I just wanted to highlight it today. And for everyone that tuned in a couple of weeks ago when we were reporting on the research that happened in the American College of Rheumatology. And one of the highlights that I announced that day, if you remember, Melissa and Juana, was about a clinical trial that was conducted for the lupus nephritis community. And for those of you that don't know what lupus nephritis is basically a person that has a lupus and then the lupus attacks their kidneys, or they have kidney issues due to lupus. And a lot of people don't realize when they are diagnosed with lupus nephritis that they also have lupus. They think, oh, I don't have lupus SLE, I just have lupus nephritis. So there was like a huge study that was done by the Lupus Research Alliance about that. And it was quite interesting because to be honest with you, I don't think a lot of people ask those questions like, do I have this or do I have that? Or because I have lupus nephritis, does that mean I have both, right? So anyways, one of the things that I wanted to share is the fact that clinical study that I talked about was using one of the FDA approved medications that was approved in 2012 by the FDA specifically for lupus. That was the only treatment that has been approved since then. All the other treatments that are used to treat patients with lupus are borrowed treatments. So this one that I'm talking about is a drug called Benlysta or belimumab, and there was a study that was done for patients that have lupus nephritis. And the amazing thing was that when we talked about it, we said that there was like a huge impact in the lupus nephritis community, and the FDA announced it yesterday that they have approved Benlysta belimumab for the treatment of adult patients with active lupus nephritis who are receiving standard therapy. So basically what lupus nephritis is, it's inflammation of the kidneys that is caused by lupus or systemic lupus, which is what I was just talking to you guys about. So this approval is just like another amazing thing. It's groundbreaking because remember, in 2012 was the last time that Benlysta was approved for patients with lupus, and not everyone will get this treatment, and it will not work for everyone because, as we all know, every person is different and unique with lupus. So that was just groundbreaking. Congratulations to GlaxoSmithKline, GSK, for all the work that you guys have been doing, for everything that you do for the lupus community. not only do you provide these treatments specifically for the lupus community, but you also continue to give the patients the tools that they need to be able to and be empowered and continue thriving with lupus. So it's just pretty amazing. It's, a breakthrough therapy that, was just designed for the lupus community. So that we need to just celebrate.
I'm glad you're sharing this too, because it brings up something that I wanted to talk about a little bit when we get into 2021 is a question for everyone out there is, how much of the science do you want to know? So for example, within this study, would you like us to dive a little bit deeper into how the research was put together? So to know that it was a 104-week randomized double-blind placebo-controlled type of study and what that means. So we'll be happy to share, or do you want us to get into more of the clinical research and the science of it? So that was something that from my side, I wanted to pull people out there and our community members for how deep we can get into the science. Because I was reading, Estella sent me the press release, so I was going through it as well. And just, I've learned a lot on trying to understand what, what lupus nephritis is. I have a cousin who's actually a kidney specialist, so it's interesting to me in that sense. She's written books and stuff before, so my curiosity of learning. But if you also have an interest in science, please let us know so we can dive deeper eventually into these studies.
Yes, and it's so great that you point that out, Melissa, because a lot of times, when we were talking about the scientific studies that were brought up at the ACR, a lot of times, us as patients, we are looked at as maybe not wanting to learn about this, maybe not having an interest, or maybe not even understanding it. And, that's another thing that I thought was pretty amazing, because not only has the American College of Rheumatology started accepting or including patients as part of the conference, but I think they're realizing that some of us or some patients are inclined to want to learn more of the science part of it. I know you're one. I mean, look, you have been living with fibromyalgia since the age of 14. And you are known as a biohacker because that's what you've done. And I don't know, I don't get too deep into it, but just explain what biohack means, just for those people that are the science nerds.
Well, unfortunately, biohacking has gone into different realms. So, I mean, they've gone deep into other things of like genetic splicing and CRISPRs and stuff. So that's not what I did to myself. I did not change my genetics, but I started to understand my genetics. And there's stuff called epigenetics. So I just learned even through that, like how I could better serve myself with the genetics I was given. I was born with a very, very slow processing system, and I won't get too much into the genetics of it. But what biohacking really meant for me was to empower me that I could actually I'm in the driver's seat of my own health. And I think for years I'd gone around like everyone told me to. I had to find a doctor, searching for a specialist, flying out of the country, driving across the country to see a specialist for fibromyalgia to find the right person that could help me, where I forgot that I actually was a person that could help me and the leader of my team. So I gave up a lot of power for a very long time with no hope. And so a biohacking helped me realize I really had the power. So that's a lot of the mission of Support Fibro, giving back the patients their power and understanding you have a lot more control than anyone has ever told you before. And with technology and out there and new science, like we might have to embrace it right now. Providers need to get caught up. Research is out there. It's trickling in for fibromyalgia, but we need to catch up. And in the meantime, while providers are going to be educated and we're going to catch them up on the latest research, as patients, we can't just, we have to get more information and help ourselves.
And thank you, Melissa. But as patients, it's important for us to learn about our bodies, to take charge. Because a lot of the times, a lot of people, what they do is this: whatever the doctor says or whatever they hear is what they have to go by. And it's important that we as patients take charge, learn, and also do what we can to get better.
Exactly. And I have a question, because now that we've brought up this rollout of Benlysta, I mean, how do these things generally go in the community? So does it take a long time for people to have access to the medication? And then what happens if it doesn't help people with the medication?
You know, it's that's a great question, and one of the things that we've realized, and I think I don't know if it was with you when we were talking about healthcare literacy, or if it was on another conversation I had with someone else. But the interesting thing is, a lot of times, even like, let's say Juana goes to her rheumatologist next week or next month.
Mhm.
Her rheumatologist may not even have been updated with this groundbreaking FDA approved treatment. And perhaps they might not even bring it up because maybe their insurance is not covering yet and they don't know if it's going to be covered. So it's so interesting that you ask that. And this is why I think we as patients need to take more control and ask those kinds of questions. Now you've triggered me to go find out why and how and when will it be accessible, because it's great to learn that it's FDA approved. We know that there were studies done, we know it's been out, and how soon can we get it, right? And how soon are these insurance plans going to approve and or start the distribution and or the treatment? Because if you remember, belimumab or Benlysta was an IV infusion back in the day, 2012. Then it started, it took a couple years, more than a couple years, in order for now Benlysta to be given as a intramuscular shot, right? So now you could just give yourself the shot with a treatment. And with this study, if I'm not mistaken, they were not given the IV infusion. They were given like a high dose of it, and it was through a shot. So it's quite interesting to find out when it'll be available, if it is available now, if the insurances are covering it. And again, it ties back to the empowerment, right? Learning about these things, learning what to ask your provider, because if I go in next week, I would want to know, hey, what's more information about this? Do you have more information about this treatment, and can I benefit from it? So, that's, again, another thing for us to consider as patients, to kind of empower ourselves and take that initiative. So I will start asking those questions, and I hope by the next time we meet, we have answers. And in the meantime, even if we don't have the Community Connect Live, if we have some groundbreaking news or something like this, we might just connect with you guys outside of just Fridays, because obviously if it's something important for us to share. But another thing that I wanted to talk about, Melissa, really quick, is I wanted to highlight, so we were talking about lupus research and how it's been like a lot of their the research has been increased. And I told you about the Department of Defense, how they created the CDMRP, which is a program that was created. Lupus Research Program, not CDMRP. LRP, and it was created in 2017. It was specifically for lupus research, and one of the things that they included was consumer peer reviewers. And again, this is all scientific, right? You don't have to know and learn all this information. You just have to want to be willing to be, to participate when others are going to include you. And Juana was one of the consumer peer reviewers. And it is pretty amazing because just a couple of days ago, they went ahead and they posted a link in regards to how the lupus research program had been funded and how innovative and how impactful this research has been in the lupus community. And that's very important, because if you realize that now there's funding for research and you're including the patient and the consumer peer reviewer, those that it's going to impact, then I think it brings a whole different value. And again, this is, just like information that we wanted to share. we want to empower you as a patient, as a caregiver, to take that initiative and want to learn a little bit more or a little bit further.
I do want to ask Juana more about her experience. I'm about to share the link that you're talking about. I pulled it up, so I'll definitely post that in the comments. But it's definitely intriguing to understand more about what that means, and maybe inspire other people to understand and get involved.
Yeah, to actually be a peer reviewer, you have to be nominated by an lupus organization. I was nominated by Lupus Research Alliance. It was intimidating at the beginning, but I mean, reading and going over all the different trials, or is it
Potential trials.
potential, yeah. So it was intimidating for me because I mean the language, and it was just so different. But what they were looking for is for the patient input, what we thought about it, and how we felt about that certain trial or research. So it was very interesting. And when I was actually there, we get to speak to other researchers, and they get to hear our input, what we feel about it, and why we think that study is important, and how it would help the lupus community. So it was very interesting. I definitely recommend that a lupus patient or a caregiver, in my opinion, I think that a caregiver would also be a great reviewer, because they get to see from the patient differently than what we are as patients are feeling, or how we feel and see the study. So I
Yeah.
definitely feel that not only the lupus patients, but also the caregivers that are very close to the lupus patient would be
Yes.
important.
Exactly. And I'm going to read one of the quotes because I know our friend Molly McCabe, who is also, she is an amazing lupus patient advocate. She was awarded last year by the Lupus Research Alliance, an award for all of her work that she's done in the lupus community. And it's just amazing to see everything that she does every year. And her quote, because she's also a peer reviewer for the LRP, and I'm just going to read it just so you guys can see from her perspective what it is. So, consumer reviewers provide a unique perspective in peer review that is both rewarding and essential to the process. I think my role there is to provide the layman report of how each study will affect the patient. And the key words there is, one, it's obviously rewarding to you as a patient, right, Juana, for you to
Definitely.
participate. But the key word is essential to the process. And I think the more we talk about it, and the more, when we talk about healthcare, everything's patient centric, right? And, research is patient centric, healthcare is patient centric. Let's just continue to include the patients in everything that we do, because overall healthcare, and also to have better outcomes or better patient outcomes, you do need to include the patient. So I just wanted to announce that because it was really amazing that, that came out, a couple of days before, and then you have the FDA approval of Benlysta, and you see the community celebrating. And a lot of the times it's, obviously lupus research organizations that are promoting and congratulating. But I want, and this is why we do this Community Connect Live, we want to bring it to you, the patients, because you need to be empowered and know this information, so then you can take initiative and control. And again, the more you learn, the more questions you will have. What Melissa was talking about is so important, because you need to know all these details sometimes to be able to understand, like, hey, how is this going to impact me? I know right now, not everyone's concerned about like this breaking news with the lupus community, and we're more concerned about the other great news that happened this week about the vaccine being out for COVID, right? So it's just like two different great announcements for the community that we bring to you guys. So just to transition over to the whole COVID really quick, I do want to, I wish maybe we had more information, and hopefully we will soon, so we can have like a whole discussion, Juana and Melissa, about the COVID vaccine and how the treatment is going to be. Like, is it going to be 1 or 2 doses? Do we have to take both dosages? How is it going to impact the, autoimmune community? How is it going to impact those living with chronic conditions, people like us with fibromyalgia? How is this vaccine going to impact us? Will it help us? Is it recommended? All of those things. And I encourage everyone to ask themselves that. As we do our research on our own, we will bring it up to you guys, not to skew you from going from one direction to another, but just to bring it up as a community connect conversation. Because again, part of the empowerment and part of the power that we have as patients is to learn and to communicate, right? We had that whole discussion yesterday, is to communicate, to get information, and to ask the questions.
Right.
Right. And we definitely need more clarification. There's still a lot of confusion, even with how information has been disseminated the whole year. And so I think taking down, this is where it's like, I know I usually take a very middle of the ground approach for everyone out there. So I absorb the science as much as possible and try to make decisions based on that, as opposed to leaning to one side or the other. So giving that input, obviously I have beliefs that I can't factor out, as far as, my own hesitancy with it because of past reactions. So it's just interesting to understand the differences, because I heard even with the Moderna vaccine that they actually did factor in people who have allergic reactions into the study. So yeah, I'm trying to get more information on that, just for my own self, because I know with Pfizer, they didn't take some of that into account, and I'm allergic to everything. So
Melissa, I have a question now that you mentioned that, but because I think we're all concerned about having a reaction and or a long-term effect if we do get the vaccine. Maybe looking at the ingredients, do you think that that we can see if, like, for example, if I'm allergic to something that's in the ingredient, obviously I'm not going to get it. But is there anything else that we can look for
I think
other
those are
than
tough.
just the ingredients?
Other than ingredients?
Uh-huh.
I think
the
that's why we
study.
need more information. I think it was the Lupus Research Alliance that was talking to a doctor. Just to tell everyone out there, we are not medical doctors, but
No,
we have questions, and that's the thing. We need to have trust built with communities, and it's not just the chronic illness community that's confused. Everyone, there's so much confusion. There's so much information being thrown out. So what are we going to take and believe? There's so much excitement, and there's anger, and we're I feel like we're stuck in the middle of trying to understand what we need to do. So I like to see other organizations give just talk about the science. These are decisions that we have to make for our own health and what that looks like. I know, even talking to a doctor, he was mentioning one of the ingredients and stuff to look at and those things, but if you've had previous reactions to that ingredient, but I don't know, I need to do more. I'm trying to dig into more. So I need to look at some of my resources, that do have videos. I think I've been diving into people actually who, it's interesting that the people that I notice that give me the best information don't live in the United States. So I'm wondering why that is. So providers and stuff at the UK have been giving some very good up-to-date information.
I think it's so interesting you say that, because the UK, a lot of the things you always see or hear about that happens in the UK before it comes to the US, to be honest with you, is what I've been realizing it lately. And one of the things that came up, and again, know who your resources are, because there's a lot of information out there, and that's what we want you to do, is to do the correct research. Obviously, when we hear about like someone doing something or someone talking about something, make sure that you follow through and do your own research. But yes, in the UK, there have been a lot of studies that have been done, and even with a vaccine, the way they were administering, or they started administering, and the changes that they have made, and I won't go into the details, but a lot of the things were switched up. Who was going to get the vaccine? Who was going to be the first one to get it, etc. They changed their plan. We're still continuing with the original plan here in the US. So it's interesting to see if we're going to shift to what the UK is now doing versus if we're going to stick with what originally had been, stated here. But, yes, definitely the concerns are out there. I think for a lot of us in our community, we think about our chronic conditions, how this vaccine is going to impact us. But we also, another thing that we have to consider is the fact that this COVID-19 is really real. I'll be honest with you. For me, I see hope in everything. I see positivity in everything. So I do want to do my due diligence. I do want to learn more about it. I want to know all the pros and the cons. I want to learn more about, the studies that were done, because there are 2 vaccines that are out there, right? And you just mentioned both, one from Pfizer and the other one is, tell me again, Moderna. So those 2 are out there, and they're a little bit different. Even though they're COVID-19, from the refrigeration and the process, like everything there's differences there. There's also differences in the way they conducted the study, who was included, just like what you mentioned. Now, is this important to the people, or to people like us? I think it is. And I think that's kind of what the science behind it, and what Melissa was talking about, is feeling empowered. I'll be honest with you. Out of everything, like I read on some of the studies, and one of the concerns on one of the studies was patients got Bell's palsy. Yes, there were no deaths linked to the actual, dosage or the vaccine itself, but there were patients that had Bell's palsy, which means, they had like the issues with the nerves in their face. And does that impact? Is that something new? Will it, if you've had Bell's palsy, if Bell's palsy runs in your family, are you then at a higher risk? I mean, these are all extra questions that us as consumers need to kind of be aware of. So I'm hoping that hopefully soon, and we won't make the official announcement yet, but hopefully soon there will be information to the community where it outlines all of these questions that are being addressed. And if you have questions, this is where my ask to you is today. If you have questions, kind of like what Melissa's talking about, her allergies, if you have questions about what would you ask, or what would you want to know before you make the decision about getting or not getting the COVID-19 vaccine, I want to hear from you. I want to know what your apprehension is, or what your motivation is when it comes to COVID-19 vaccines. And the reason I'm asking is because it's good to know and to have a voice, right? To ask these questions. This is your platform. We are patient advocates, and if you don't want to speak out, let us know and we will speak out for you. I'm not shy about speaking out.
Well, that's what I was just going to say.
Question, Estela. Have you heard from anybody, any side effects that they've had from anybody who already had the vaccine, of how they feel, or if they have any symptoms? I know that I've heard a few doctors talk about one. I know he said that he didn't have any symptoms at all. He just felt 2-3 hours later, he felt a little tired. He didn't have any symptoms. Another doctor that said how he felt, he did say that he felt like if he had exercised a lot the previous day, like the following day. Have you heard from anybody on how they feel after the vaccine? Have you asked anybody?
On a personal note, so I know someone personally that got the vaccine. I won't disclose it yet here publicly because I think I owe it to that person to ask
Right.
them if I should disclose that.
Right.
But I will say I won't disclose who yet, but there were no extra side effects besides the fact that there was pain on the location that it was administered, like kind of like the flu vaccine. When it's administered, you feel hot and it kind of hurts. So I'll say that much for right now, but stay tuned because we will share a little bit more. Having had COVID myself in July, not knowing if I was going to survive COVID, and not being able to breathe. And, you guys know how much I love to talk, not being able to talk without being short of breath and have difficulty breathing was scary for me. So, I take that into consideration when, when I'm looking into, COVID, the COVID vaccine. And, we just have to, again, do our research, bring the information. Trust is huge, Melissa. I totally get it. I think for many, many years, the patients or the community, we have not been included in these research studies, right? Not everyone has been. And, knowing who was included in these clinical trials, the ethnic backgrounds, the diversity that was included, how many people were included, what the reactions were, if they had allergic reactions, if they had allergies prior to that. I mean, I think these are all important things. And, hopefully we bring you like a deeper dive. I'm actually so inclined to doing so if you want to tackle that with me, girl.
I definitely think eventually it'd be good. I mean, I know people, I know few volunteers for the Pfizer vaccine. So they volunteered, so they were in the trial actually. So I know what they felt like after. I think someone sneaky did an antibody test to figure out if he had the placebo or he actually had. So he was very sneaky about that. But it's interesting. I mean, this what fascinates me in that sense. And I know working with the both of you, it is that sense of hope. And it's hard because sometimes I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I'm just like a realist because I want to know why on everything, like how do we present this? So it's not pessimistic. I'm just like, okay, let's break down the science and break it down so then we can figure it out before I get too excited. I mean, my dad is really excited about it. And I was like, okay, but what is like, and he's like, gosh, he's like, can't you let me be excited? I was like, okay. I won't ask any more questions.
Melissa, I signed up to be part of the study. And when they called me in, I was very nervous and I said no. So they had already done the interview and I kind of regret it now. Actually, I regretted it a few, maybe 2 weeks after I said no. And I called back. And when I called back, they said no, that they weren't doing it anymore. But I wish I would have done it. I really, really do.
But
I heard that from my brother too. But you know what? It might be interesting if I were to donate my body to it. Although I didn't want to be that one person that stops the trial because I guarantee that would be me. Because to let people know, I've had past reactions to flu shots. So that's why I ended up hospitalized after flu shots. So but I was like, I don't want to be that one person that like stops the whole trial. But honestly, if they were able to get through me, we know it would work for everyone.
We're going to volunteer you.
My body needs to get donated to science because, if I get bitten by a spider or mosquito, like, wow, in like seconds, it's whoosh.
Yeah. And you know what? And it's not like, you were talking about, it's not that you're pessimistic or bringing everyone, or you're not no Debbie Downer. I think this is the reality. And this is why I love how, the three of us, just the three of us here, right? We have three different perspectives. Like even though, yes, I want to know the research, I always like to think about the positive, but I'm also very, very inclined to knowing and learning about it. And you're more of a realist, and I love it because we bring all these differences. And then Juana, she's more like I don't want to say the skeptical, but more of the cautious, right? More of the cautious one. So it's all a good combination because this is just three of us in our community. Can you imagine the rest? The ones that don't know, or the ones that are waiting for answers or guidance, and then they get guided by the wrong people or the wrong information. So to me, I just think, just talking about it is already raising a lot of awareness. And also talking about it and creating a discussion will empower others to also think about these things. So it's not bad to question it, or to be a realist, as you call yourself. It's not being a Debbie Downer. I actually think it's a good thing. It's a good quality to be able to, question it. And the fact that your dad was so excited and that he told you, that just brings me to the next thing, which is talk about it with your family, right? Talk about it with your loved ones. This is not like the politics. Like, don't include the politics around the whole COVID-19 in the conversation, and you should be fine. If you talk about more of the questions that or the concerns that you have.
Exactly, and have open conversations. And I think also I hope that these companies also realize that having patients involved that are unbiased, like we're not getting paid by Pfizer, we're not getting paid by Moderna. So it's like having really unbiased opinions and actual questions. So that's why I do encourage the community to ask your questions here. And if you don't want to join in some of the conversations that we may be involved with these companies, we can ask these questions of, when providers are talking about it, or how can we get this information out there? Because there are organizations that we are affiliated with, or that at least are on our email newsletters and stuff that we read, that are talking about it. So they have chats. So maybe we can share those questions on those chats that they're having, and they have providers involved. So let's ask the questions.
Yes, and definitely, if you don't feel comfortable posting your question on, on the live, on the feed right now, we totally understand. But we want you to know that we are here for you. So please email us or connect with us in our social media. Send us a private message or a private email. We will look at those and we will respond to you. And again, we want to encourage you guys to ask these questions, to step up, to empower you. This is why we do what we do. And, I said it yesterday and I keep saying it. My sister is alive today because she spoke out, and she felt empowered and felt the need to do so. And I think the more that we do that, the more we communicate, the better off we are going to be. Because, we need
Being
to.
empowered doesn't mean disrespecting either, because that's one thing that I have to say. I mean, I respect the doctor that treated me that day, yet I had to speak up. I had to ask him to do the test. And that's what we have to continue to do, not just, I mean, that was my experience, but I mean, that's what we all have to do when we do go to the doctors, ask questions. Why is it that we're doing this? And if we don't feel well, we are the experts on our bodies. So we need to let the doctors know. They are experts, yes, and we have to respect them. But only we know how we're feeling.
Well, and in science, I mean, we question everything. So that's what
Well,
it's driven by.
doesn't everything start with a question?
Yeah, I mean, we have questions. So it's like, even with different information, I mean, I'm fascinated with long haulers and what the information is. I think I shared mitochondrial post, or I was listening to Dr. Perlmutter, and he shared the research about how this virus COVID may hide in the mitochondria, which actually starts to make more sense of why you get the post exertion. And I was like, wow, that's a sneaky little virus if that's what it's doing. Because mitochondria is in everything for your energy powerhouses. So it was interesting to hear that research.
And the mitochondria lives in the cell, right? At the cellular level. Just for those of you that, and the only, not that I am, nerdy, but I just remember when we drew out the cell and I had the little had to draw the mitochondria, that little squiggly wiggly, almost accordion like part of the cell. So when Melissa says these scientific terms, the mitochondria lives in every cell, and every cell, and we have a lot of cells. We are composed of cells in our body, and that is what creates the energy, and that is what she's talking about.
Yeah, this goes back to biology class.
Yes. But it's just so interesting, and this is the part, or the science part, that I love about you, is when you told me that, it just took me back, and it makes you realize COVID is so sneaky, right? And if it's doing that, and if it's affecting us that much, what are the effects? And that's even another question. If I had COVID, is it okay for me to get the vaccine? If I'm still getting, long haul effects of COVID, does it mean that it's still living in my cells, in my body?
Mhm.
Right?
That's a really good question. I haven't heard people talking about that a lot.
Nope. But this is why we're here.
I've also heard why is it that the COVID vaccine was developed so fast, and people are talking about the HIV vaccine or HIV medication, but they're saying COVID, how long it took? Months. It didn't take years. So why is it that we have it so fast?
Yeah.
I
And
have seen a lot of questions on that.
Yeah, and these are a lot of valid questions. And I
Right.
think, once we get answers to this is where we're going to start to understand, why was it expedited? Why was it approved? We were just talking about the FDA approving Benlysta for lupus nephritis, and Benlysta has been used
Yes.
for the past almost 10 years for lupus patients, right? Why did it take so long? So I think those are the things that we as consumers or as patients need to get answers to. And again, all valid questions, and I encourage you to be like excited to learn a little bit more about this before you make the decisions about whether it's the COVID vaccine, whether it's a new treatment, whatever it is. Asking questions is not a bad thing.
Exactly. And I mean, that's what we're going to continue with in 2021 and continue with more of this information. I know we're going to have to close it out because I really want to get this video to all our Instagram friends out there.
Yeah.
Do you have any closing remarks for us as we close out our last episode of 2020?
For me, I want to say I am so grateful for you to have encouraged us and empowered us to start this Community Connect Live, to connect with our community, to bring it to everyone, to their household. That is something we've always wanted to do. And the fact that you encouraged us to do this and kind of pushed a little on something that we wanted to do is amazing. So I am 100% grateful for that. And then another thing is, I want everyone to know that they're not alone. 2020 has been a very difficult year, but in a lot of difficulties, and being in that deep valley sometimes makes us a little bit stronger. And we have to go through situations like this to endure all this pain, to be able to thrive and be more resilient in the future. So that's what I have to say for 2020. There's a lot of positive things that happened, even though there's been a lot of negativity.
Right. I agree with my sister Stella. Though we've gone through many, many struggles, we're still here standing strong. We're ready for 2021 to continue to do what we love. And we are very grateful to have met you or started working with you, Melissa. We're happy that, we're going to continue to work together, bring awareness, and bring to the community resources.
Exactly. I mean, I feel, there are a lot of hurdles in 2020, but coming towards this tail end and reflecting a lot, like I feel stronger than ever with organizational wise and working with you. And then, it's easy to forget the work that we did, but I mean, Juana was outstanding getting those proclamations this year. I was like, was that this year or last year? Like, we still went to DC in March, like as scared and worried as I was, but we were there when Capitol Hill got shut down. So we need to come up with some fun message. Like when you're the last person to leave the party, like you shut it down. So we shut down Capitol Hill. Basically, we were the only ones there at the time.
I remember exactly where we were when we actually left the building. We're at Kamala Harris's office, and we walked
Who's
out.
now vice president. Oh my
Right.
gosh. Amazing.
Right. And I mean, I can remember the last day we were at Capitol Hill. I mean, remember the time we got there when we went in and what we did, and when we were told that nobody else was allowed to go in to Capitol Hill.
And we
were
made it
already
at
there.
we got there like at 7 a.m, and nobody was allowed after.
I know you guys were mad at me because I made us get there early. I'm like, why are we going so early? I know, I'm sorry, I'm an early, like I need to get everywhere on time, like early.
But when
Right.
you look back, I'm glad that you pushed us to get up early, to be there early.
Right.
And, these are the things. And again, reflecting back on 2020, you're right. We have been through so much, but nothing has stopped us, right? We
Right.
went to DC. I mean, we were also in DC in January. And then we, knowing the kind of what was happening with COVID, it was the beginning of COVID. And then we went in March, and we knew that we had to do a job. We wanted to represent the fibromyalgia community, and we wanted to be with you, and we wanted to go in and speak on behalf of all the fibromyalgia community. So for us, it was important to do so. And, to come back and to have been blessed with working remote. I've been working remote. I work with providers, and to continue the work that we have. We're now, Zoom experts, or claim to be, because we know how to log in. But we've been doing so much, and thanks to technology, we have been able to continue to connect. And, again, looking back, we've done a lot. We started the Community Connect Live. We did our fibromyalgia advocacy. We continued with the proclamations despite of COVID. We, obviously got them mailed in. It was a little bit different, but it still happened. We still
You still continue to work it for lupus, fibromyalgia, and mental health. So that was awesome. You had the three trifecta of that stuff. So
Right. I mean, life doesn't end. I mean, we have to continue. And we can't give up. We have to continue doing what we need to do to continue to thrive and continue to, to do what we need to do.
Yes. And 2021 is going to be better than 2020. And we have to be hopeful. There's so many plans, so many projects that we're going to be working on together. I am so excited about that, to close out this year and to know that next year is going to be a better year is, like so exciting for me. I know we're going to do so much more. We're going to continue with proclamations. We're going to continue with the advocacy. We're going to continue with the Community Connect. We're going to continue to support the fibromyalgia, the lupus community, the mental health community, and just the community overall. And I'm just hopeful for 2021, excited, and glad that we're closing 2020.
I know. Well, and you're going to continue with mental health and art therapy workshops. So we look forward to that. You have your support group that is virtual. So you have a lot of great things. And I think that's why I just wanted to mention, like, it felt like was a little rocky. I think I have the disinfection thing down now. So again, I feel stronger than ever moving into 2021, really empowered to like take on fibromyalgia and what we're doing together, ready for it. So
that's taking on the road, right, Melissa? We're going on the road.
Virtually. Virtually
Yeah.
for now. Or I think maybe, I don't know, eventually you might see me in a hazmat suit driving around in my car. Like that smell.
It will be right behind her.
But no, it's definitely been great. I think we're definitely stronger than we've ever been. So I want people out there to know that, and know we're stronger. We're gonna keep fighting through, and you're gonna hear much more of us. And please participate. You know, these discussions are for the community. We want to hear from you. Subscribe to our channels. There's a lot of information that you learn from both our organizations, and we have a lot of guests and interviews coming up, even internationally, I'm excited for. So yes, so please like, share, let the whole communities out there for fibromyalgia and lupus know about the work that we're doing, so that they know like someone is doing this work for them. So.
And I want to say something to those that speak Spanish. Aquí estamos para ustedes. Este año ha sido un poquito difícil, pero lo hemos sobresalido y espero que nos sigan acompañando. El año que entra tenemos muchos proyectos y queremos seguir diciéndoles de que no están solos y estamos aquí para ustedes. O cualquier cosa que necesiten, ya sea del COVID, ya sea del lupus, de fibromialgia o de la salud mental, estamos aquí para ayudarles a su servicio. Gracias.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. So have a great weekend. Happy holidays. And we will see you you have your mental health Monday, but you'll be seeing us through. But the Community Connect will be back in a couple weeks.
Yes.
Okay, bye.
Bye.